That's really the main one that's keeping us busy, and GVX. Malmo, we have a couple of that as well that are still helping with the closing up. In terms of smart hands for Microsoft, not much movement at the moment, but I'm hoping that next week we can get some traction on that. You mentioned CoWIV last time. CoWIV is another one that's going to come like a storm in Falun as well as Norway. I don't know how we can prepare for that.
You can't.
The problem is that we need to have the SSG cards as well as the HMS cards at the same time. So in the last meeting last week, they're still having issues with the delivery of materials, supplies, and there is some coordination that we need to do on site. That is what it is. So hopefully that will make things a little bit better. I'm sure. That's the biggest that we're waiting in the pipeline at the moment. Hopefully before the summer kicks in, but I got a feeling that both of those projects will start in the summer. So just
vacation in May.
Apart from that, there is nothing else much happening. It's stuck and waiting for the cold storm to hit up.
Good.
Yeah.
But it sounds like we are busy. That sounds
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
That's it.
So, Ken, are you ready?
Yeah.
Are we ready for you?
I hope so. Thanks, everyone, for your continuing, evolving attention to health and safety. I really appreciate it. I see it. I feel it. I hope I'm being helpful and giving you little tools each time I do this, plus the review. Today, we're going to be talking about something. Here we go. This is cognitive bias. What I'm going to present here, I'm not going to read all the slides or go through every slide. I'm going to give this to you before the end of the week, either today or tomorrow, so that you can take a closer look on your own. But what I want to bring to our attention is that cognitive bias, when we do a root cause analysis of major incidents, which I'll present a few here, we often see that cognitive bias, which is a systematic deviation from rational judgment affecting how we process information and make decisions, is really at the root cause of misunderstanding a hazard and how we can attend to controlling that hazard, how we can assess the risk, right? So biases distort risk perception, they complicate decision-making and contribute to preventable incidents. I'm going to whip through this, but I want you guys to know some basics. I've got 10 of them here. There's more, but this is what applies to us. Confirmation bias. You find what you believe already exists. You have an understanding in mind as far as the risk, what it's going to take, what the things you have to be careful about are, and it's not complete. It's based on incomplete information or misperception, but we don't get it right. So that's a confirmation bias. We're only seeing what we already expect to see, and we're ignoring other things. Anchoring bias, you may be presented with information initially that registers sort of like the first impression you have with people. That can sort of stick, that becomes sticky. So that's anchoring bias. That can distort your perception of risks. Availability heuristic. So what's the most immediately available item in your mind that you can relate to a certain risk or hazard or task, and you'll grab onto that, and that's going to be prominent in your mind. Hindsight bias. When you look back, it seems, oh yeah, that was obvious. That's obvious why this happened, what the cause of an incident was. And that's easy to say when we look back, and it may give us a false sense of confidence, but when we're heading into it fresh, we may not be seeing the complete picture, and it's important to recognize that even though when we look back it can seem simple, it may not always be as simple going forward. Dunning-Kruger effect, this is when you overestimate your ability in a certain area of skills so that you think you're better than you actually are. And this could happen for a number of different things. I think of our big orange guy right now, but it can be that you think you're better than you are. It can also be that you're so well informed about your area of expertise that you recognize there's a lot that you will always have to learn that you don't know, and then you underestimate your ability. So both of those are Dunning-Kruger effects. Status quo bias, we've always done it this way. So far, so good. Keep going. If you want to fly and you jump off a cliff, it's going to be so far so good for a while, and that will inevitably lead to something going wrong. Sunk cost fallacy. We've already paid for it. Money's in. Just keep going. Let's not make changes. We've already made the investment. Sunk cost fallacy. Overconfidence bias. A bit similar to Dunning-Kruger, except it applies to everything. I can do this. Wrench is falling. Got it. No problem. Don't have to worry about it. Overconfidence bias. Plan commitment bias. We're working on a big job. We've got a plan. It's supposed to be done by 5 o'clock, or it's supposed to be done by Friday or the end of the month. And all the resources, everyone's in there. They're concentrating. There's higher stress, changing dynamic situations going on. Ignore them. We got to meet the deadline. Things can go wrong. Finally, framing effect. How we present the information can distort or influence our perception. So, some questions I sprinkled through here. This is what I'm going to spend more time on. If it takes 5 machines, but not much time, 5 minutes to make 5 widgets, how long would it take 100 machines to make 100 widgets? Who says 100? Who says 5? Answer is 5. So this is an anchoring bias because the information presented to you right away was 5, 5, 5. We see that pattern, so we just extend it linearly to 100, 100, 100. But that isn't correct. But our brains have evolved to recognize patterns and give us these. Heuristic is our brain's shortcut of saying, oh, I know how this goes. I've seen this before. I know this pattern. And you take a guess, but it is not right. So example of that. This is what I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. But there's information on 4 major catastrophes here, all of which in the root cause analysis had a cognitive bias as the primary source of misidentifying the hazard, of misassessing a risk and its controls. So here we had overconfidence bias, normalization of deviance, which is status quo, sunk cost fallacy, and plan commitment, all to do with one of the largest environmental disasters in our time. All right, another pop quiz. In a lake, there is a patch of lily pads. Every day, the patch doubles in size. If it takes 48 days for the patch to cover the entire lake, how long would it take for the patch to cover half the lake? 47 is the right answer. I was trying to do like exponential growth, whatever. I came up with 12, and I was completely wrong. This is hindsight bias. You look back, it's like, oh yeah, obviously, if it doubles every day, and today it's the full thing, it was just 1 day ago that it was only half. All right.
That's AI.
Yeah. Thank you, ChatGPT. Help me out there. Columbia Space Shuttle in 2003. Space shuttle is going off. They have insulation on the outside because when you're re-entering the atmosphere, because the friction in the air gets super, super hot, right? So these foam panels, they were falling off once in a while. No big deal. Status quo bias, no problem. But actually, one of those foam heat shields came off. It's superheated. The superheated gases had affected the wing, and the whole thing came apart, and all 7 astronauts died. Cognitive bias was complacency. So far, so good. Done this before. They underestimated the risk of those foam panels. Ian can dig a hole in 2 hours. Oliver can dig the same hole in 4 hours. How long would it take them to dig the hole together?
12 hours.
12, yeah, probably. So Dunning-Kruger effect. Sometimes we overestimate the ability of ourselves, and we may underestimate or overestimate, misestimate how much time it takes. Actually, it's 1 hour and 20 minutes. The math on this, you got to do fractions, whatever, numerators, and eventually come up with 1 hour and 20 minutes, 1.3. But cognitive bias, example in the real world, Bhopal tragedy, thousands of people died in India. In 1984, when a chemical, which is methyl isocyanate gas, was leaked. This was largely sunk cost fallacy because they'd already made the investments. There was obvious maintenance and upkeep that had to be done to the facility. They didn't do it. They were cutting corners, and then there was this disaster. And that's a rabbit hole that you can dive down. But again, cognitive bias as a root cause there. How many months have 28 days? All of them is the right answer, but this is an example. If you thought 1 because of February, that's a availability heuristic. So we think of month, 28 days, and right away your brain goes February, but it's all 12 months have 28 days. Example 4, real world. In New York, train went off the rail. 4 people died, 61 were injured. and this was plan commitment bias. They had to get the work done. Fatigue was involved. That distorts judgment, ability, and led to a disaster. Again, not a lot of time. I'll be sharing this. Dive in. Yolene's mother has 3 daughters. The first 2 are named April and May. What's the third daughter's name? Yolene. But of course, we're thinking June, right? So that's confirmation bias. We're thinking May or April, May, June must be, yeah, I know what that is. I know this one, but it's, of course, it's June. Okay. Possible cognitive biases in data centers. I'm not going to read all these because I know we're short on time, but I would like you to take a look at these. Confirmation bias. We're used to doing something a certain way. We expect to see it done that way. Don't get stuck in there. Anchoring bias, availability heuristic, Dunning-Kruger effect. All these are examples. Oh, and hindsight. And I've got all 10 of them here. So peruse as you will. But each of these has to do with what could possibly happen in a data center. The most important thing I want you all to take away from this is that cognitive bias is one of the most serious influencing effects on our ability to accurately and safely assess control hazards and do our risk assessments properly. So just always be willing to be fresh, have that safety consciousness, that frosty thinking out of the box. All right. 3 apples are in a basket. You take away 2. How many do you have? You have 2 apples because you just took 2 away. Remember, this is why we're doing what we're doing. We're trying to avoid the lagging indicators by paying attention to leading indicators. When we are doing our RAMs, it's not going to be done right if we have cognitive biases influencing how we're understanding and assessing the risks. So just that's why I'm giving you this as another tool. All right, final little question. You're in a Grand Prix go-kart racing and you pass Rasmus in 2nd place. What position are you in now? 2nd. Yeah, you're not in 1st, you're in 2nd. This is overconfidence bias. Well, why? Because nobody passes Rasmus. Actually, you know, many assume if you pass 2nd, you're in 1st, but no, you're in 2nd. There's Rasmus. So remember, we're on this continuum, okay? Reactive, that's going to be a whole bunch of cognitive bias. We want to be moving away from there. We want to be clear in our thinking, understanding the risks, assessing them correctly, and then starting to, as we learn these new tools that we have to incorporate, they become part of us. They get integrated into us. We hold them in our heart. It's how we do it. And then we help all of our team, all of our colleagues do it in a safe way. Here's the risk assessment. This is what we can get wrong if we've got bias bleeding in. And then remember the hierarchy of controls. And it's this safety consciousness. Stop and think. What am I about to do? That's, again, the place where this cognitive bias is going to have the biggest influence. One final thing I wanted to, yes?
No, yeah, go on. I just stop you here. So only done.
One final thing I want to point out. Well, 2 things here, but on the right, this 3rd QR code, that's a wellness learning hub. This came up in the past week. Fatigue, tiredness, depression, seasonal depression, which ironically has the acronym SAD. But all these mental health oriented things that all influence our mental capacity and can have a big hand in cognitive bias. If you click on that 3rd QR code where it says Wellness Learning Hub, there's a lot of information there. If you haven't gone there yet, click on the code, dive in. There's tons of presentations on all sorts of different topics to help inform us and support on mental health. So I just wanted to point that out. But on incident notification, we're going to have a competition.
Okay, before that,
Yes.
I want to know how many of you, hands up here, has actually done one of those, clicked on these QR codes? 1.
I done.
2. Okay, so now you can go on, but that is not good enough. Okay, so we should